everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm talking to Tyler Cragen. He's been with me since like almost the very beginning. He also started a channel. It's called The Greatest Cause. And it's been a while. I wanted to catch up with him. He's wanted to catch up with me. And so Tyler, in this time that you've been doing your channel, I mean, what kind of things have you pulled out? What have been some of the highlights, would you say, in this journey that you've taken?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of I originally started the channel just as general conference breakdowns, and that's mostly what I do. Um, but I've been having like other like little thought videos, like I'll just share like quick little like 2 minute thoughts. And um, one of the biggest things I've been learning, other than just like content creation skills, um, it has mainly been how to how to I guess consistently be spiritual, if that makes any sense. Like I feel like a responsibility to be um just kind of on point.
Yeah.
It's a little, I don't know if I don't know if you've experienced this as you've been doing your channel, but for me, I'm like, if I'm not having like a great day or a great week spiritually, it's kind of hard for me to record some of these videos and like tell people like, hey, like you need to be doing this, or like this is the best way to do this, when I'm like, I fail at this all the time. And so I tend to be very hard on myself just as a person. But as I've been doing this channel, um, I'm really starting to see like, oh, I have a lot of shortcomings. And so every time I've been approaching, or I guess tackling each video, I'm like, okay, how can I learn from this, and how can I um, present myself in a way that's not where I'm not speaking as if I'm an authority on this subject. And so that's kind of been a humbling journey, but it's been satisfying.
Yeah. Doing this channel, I've said it before in like another video or two, it has taken my study to the next level because I'm devoting so much time to this. And it's astounding how there's no shortage of things to learn. And I'm not just talking about second coming things, but just because I've been covering a lot of like general church topics, and it's never ending. And but that's just the process of life. Like we keep learning and then keep realizing how much we don't know or how much we have to improve in certain areas. And it's just the marathon rather than the sprint of life. And so we just gotta, keep going. But I find a lot of enjoyment doing this. One, because I get to help others. We get to learn together, but two, I get to like really look into some of those questions that I've had or things that I thought I knew and like really get it more nailed down. But yeah. So since the last time we spoke, like what are like the biggest things that you've either found out or like, if you've been doing the breakdowns of general conference talks, what are like some specific things that like really stuck out to you that maybe you've been thinking about ever since you did the video?
Well, there one thing that's immediately coming to mind is just the uh I first started after the October conference of last year, and in that conference there was a lot of like, oh, there's never been a time like this, or like now more than ever, and stuff like that, those types of phrases.
Mhm.
And and I think I even talked about it last time we were meeting, and but especially April conference, that phrase has come up so much, or similar phrases. It's like, now more than ever, we need to be spiritually prepared. We need to have a relationship with Christ. We need all these things. And I I think just seeing the urgency of it all, the urgency of being prepared for things to come, not just the second coming, but the build up to it.
Mhm.
And the other thing I've also been learning with this channel is the importance of, if you don't have the faith and the testimony of our prophets, our leadership, you're going to have a really hard time dealing with life, because it's not just, I mean, of course, Christ is the cornerstone of this church. This is his gospel, and the prophets and apostles are his servants. But I don't think people quite realize like just how important it is to have faith in his servants. Of course, have faith in him, but history is repeating itself, because people killed the prophets, people stoned the prophets, people did not like the prophets, and that's still the case today.
Mhm.
But I feel like now, if you don't have a testimony that President Nelson is the prophet of this church, you it's like I said, it's a struggle. Like it's going to be hard to know what to do.
Well, I've noticed kind of a disturbing trend, I think, in more recent years that okay, so when you look at other maybe like Christian denominations or maybe even other religions, some of them are kind of conforming to the way of the world, the direction that the world is going. They're doing the same thing. They're making changes within their congregations, their leadership, whatever. And the disturbing trend that I've seen in our church among some is that it's almost like they expect the same thing to happen to us. In fact, there was this horrible, and I'm not bashful about it, there's this horrible article in the Atlantic where this guy who's a member of the church, he supposedly interviewed, like he didn't do much talking to President Nelson, but he interviewed President Nelson. And the way that the article was written is like, when is the church going to catch up with America, or what's going to happen in the future? How's the church going to deal with these problems? And it's like, that's not, dude, that's not how it works. You know, now the church does find common ground where it can, without um, going against doctrine, and that's fine. But there's certain things that will not change. And so if I'd say if you don't really even have a testimony, period, or a very strong testimony, then maybe some the things that the prophet says or other general authorities are going to perturb you, because it's going to make it harder for you to be a member of the church and be with your friends and want to be with them. What do you think about last week? I don't know if you got to participate in this, but I think this was like a church-wide thing. It was the fifth Sunday, and they did like a rehash kind of this last conference, making the call out to missionaries. Did you have a chance to do that in your ward?
So I I overslept last Sunday and I didn't attend my
Oh,
ward.
boo.
So, but I heard about that, and I heard about the efforts, to do that, and I just think that's interesting, and it kind of has to make you wonder. And I think to the people who might still be asleep, it kind of makes you have to wonder, why is this such a big push? You know.
Yeah. Well, what do you think it is? Like, honestly, do you think it's one thing? Do you think it's a couple things? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's a few things. One, there is such a decline um, in faith, or just religious belief or expression among the younger generations. And so that is like something we need to push, and we need, because faith belief is declining. But I also, you know, I really think we're so close to the second coming. And I mean, obviously we are, but I don't I don't know if we fully realize just how big of a deal it is. And I think even or was it, were they in the UK? It was like Elder Holland, Elder Cook, Elder Ballard. They had like their UK devotional, and I think Elder Holland said something to the effect of like, there is more there's more blood of Israel here uh, to gather, or something like that. And I
Mhm.
think, I really feel like it's the final big push before the second coming.
Yeah, I could see that. It very well could be. I think the two main explanations, one, obviously, COVID uh,
That's true.
hurt the numbers for a couple of years, but so that might be some of it. But if I'm right in some of my musings and speculations that a lot of other people share, that when Angel Moroni dropped his trumpet from the Salt Lake Temple, that could have been a sort of sign like, hey, this is like the 2-minute warning or something like that. Um, Either way, whether it's trying to bring the church back up or simply like it could be all hands on deck, this is the last push, like you said. Because I don't really remember a time where for Fifth Sunday or anything like that, church wide, we did this kind of thing where it's like, hey, everybody, do you remember what we said in the last general conference? Because like that's what it was. It's like, can you go on a mission? Can you go on a mission? Can you go on a mission? Can your friend go on a mission? Like that's what it's been like. And when I watched this last conference, it was kind of shocking. It was mostly just like the Saturday sessions, specifically the Sunday or Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon. Those were like the two big ones for the missionary push.
Yeah.
So uh it's interesting. It's fascinating. Um Now again, I should have brought this up at the beginning. You're from Orem, right?
Yeah, I'm based in Orem, but I'm actually from California.
Yeah, you're from California. Are you going to go back to California, or do you think you'll stay in Utah or go somewhere else?
No, probably stay in Utah. Like, I mean, if I ever feel like I need to go somewhere else, I will. But like, I kept thinking about it. Like, I I have no reason to leave here, and I actually really like it here in
Mm,
Utah. I don't like a lot of the I don't, to be honest, I don't like a lot of the culture here, but a lot of it's not as bad as people make it seem sometimes. I think a
yeah,
lot of people,
expand on that. It's been a while since I've been to Utah. I grew up there. I was there till I was like, I think 27 or 28. How long have you been there now?
since 2019, so it's been a few years.
Okay. So what's your perspective being a Californian and then of Utah, the culture, and has even in the time that you've been there, has it changed much? Or I guess it's kind of a short amount of time, but what have you observed?
Well, a few things I've observed. One, the there's it, there's a lot of really great members here, like just stellar people. Even if they're not members, just a lot of really good people. But there's also a lot of people that are incredibly anti, or just they're ex members and they're jaded and um, they get offended at any mention of anything sort of related to Mormon culture. And so it's just kind of like a, I don't know what you would call it. It's just like it almost feels like two extremes of like, oh, you got like members of the church, and then you got people who are super against the church, and you have people who are more in the middle, but like the two ends are the loudest, it seems. And it it it's interesting, but again, I mean, there's a lot of good people here, and there's a lot of I don't know. You got like really, you got a lot of progressive members of the church, but you also have a lot of very traditional, very conservative members of the church too.
Mhm.
And I think people also tend to put their politics way too much into church activity or like the
Oh,
church culture.
it's the worst.
And and here's the thing too. It's like I don't want to overgeneralize and say that's all of Utah or anything like that. I think you could find that anywhere, but I've noticed it a lot more here than I did in California. Because back home, I still think of that as home, but
Mhm.
back home they, you have your good and your bad people, of course, but we were a minority. In I'm from Corona, California, and there's a lot of really good people there. A lot of like there's a lot of Hispanic people, so there's a lot of Catholics and other Christian denominations, and so it was interesting growing up being like the minority religion there essentially, and going from, hey, I'm the only member of my high school there, to now everyone around me here in Utah like is either very familiar with the church or they're a member. And
Yeah.
it was really jarring at first, but I think having the saturation of members, and again, everybody's imperfect, and it just makes things kind of awkward when you have such a high saturation of members. You'd think it'd be a great thing, and in a lot of ways it is, but it can be a little awkward, especially if like I know people close to me who are no longer members, or their faith is kind of crumbling, and it's really hard for them to be around it, I've
Yeah.
noticed. And so it's an interesting culture, and I mean, I don't think anything I'm saying is super new. I think a lot of people have come to the same consensus, or that's the general consensus. But
Yeah. I think there's a lot to it. There's so many different pieces to that puzzle. Because like for one, and I've talked about this on the channel many times, just like in old Israel at the time of Christ, or even before, being in Israel, it was a religious thing, but it was also a cultural thing. And so you have people that are born into these communities, and they themselves are not really at heart members of the church. Like they are technically, but they're just kind of there because that's what they were born into, and that's okay. And then you can see how when they want to do what they actually want to do, then they're worried about shame. But at the same, that sometimes that shame is not existent, and I've seen that, in my family, where it's like, it's no big deal. Like, we're not shaming you. We don't, and we're always sensitive and stuff. So there's always like that. You have those concerns, and then if you could sort out all the tears, and you had just everyone that was genuine, things would probably be a lot better, of course. um but then the interaction between the church itself, even if it was all wheat, the church itself, and then those that are not members of the church, there would still probably be a lot of discomfort and stuff in
yeah,
that way. So it's just yeah, so that's just how it is. But I will say this though, I remember all growing up, it felt like with a lot of people, there was like people that felt self-conscious about being from Utah, being a member of the church, and they would kind of like worry about what people outside of Utah would think. But I've been out of Utah for a while. I've been to Arizona, I've been to Texas, now I'm living in Kansas, and I can say no one really even thinks about the church. And so I think sometimes people worry about a fear or a perception, or they're fearing how people perceive them, when it's like people outside of Utah don't really think that much about the church. Like maybe some do, but not really.
yeah. What's
So
interesting, just a side note there, like the when I first moved out, well, when I was first coming to Utah, I was thinking, oh man, Utah Mormons are so weird, because like everybody, not, and it wasn't even from any evidence of my own. I just always heard people say like, oh, Utah Mormons are weird. People from Utah are weird. And I got there and I'm like, I'm here and I'm like, I mean, there's some awkwardness sometimes, but it's like it's pretty normal. Like it's not as bad as people say. I think
yeah,
some people have bad experiences, but I think you find that anywhere. But like I said, there's saturation and that can make things a little awkward, but overall it's like I I went from oh no, Utah to I love it here. So
it is a great place. I miss it. There's a lot of things I miss about it, ranging from restaurants to the mountains to the salt flats to the desert to just everything, the canyons. um Have you ever eaten at El Pueblo? It's in Salt Lake.
No.
It's a really good, it's a really good place. It's like pretty authentic Mexican food, and they give you really big portions, but it's only in Utah.
Yeah.
So what's the future for your channel look like? Do you have any plans or like certain things that you really want to like look into, or how do you see things going?
Oh, it's interesting. So it my subscribers have probably noticed this, but it's been a couple months since I've actually posted anything. And well, that's just I got a lot of excuses, but mainly just job has been a little crazy, some transitions there. But anyways, I'm gonna start posting next week, and I'm excited because there's a couple of talks that I've been thinking about a lot that I'm gonna uh, dive deep into. But I've also been thinking about um, I want to be a little bit more bold with what I'm doing, and I I don't know if you've seen Troy's video he posted like 2 days ago, where he was talking about like the like those he was like looking at like weird TikTok videos and was talking about uh just the unnatural tendencies that the our generation is headed towards. And
Yeah.
he was very boldly calling out, the how Satan is the author of confusion and people are falling for it. And I'm afraid to I'm afraid to talk about those things, like, but I'm starting to see the need to call out evil and call out things that are not good. And I don't want to do it in a way that's super shameful, but like I kind of consider most of the content that I've created so far to be kind of safe. I mean, other than I've had videos being like, hey, we are in the last days and stuff like that. And that's kind of a debated thing, even among members of the church,
Mhm.
that like we're so close and things like that. But like that's the most like bold thing I feel like I've talked about. And I want to talk more about um, how we can avoid deception and call out deception in the world. But I mostly want to focus still on the words of the prophets, whether it's in in my same breakdown format or if I do other forms of content. But I want to base everything off of um, words of modern day prophets and continue to do that, because I started the channel because I don't feel like people fully fully pay attention to General Conference.
Yeah.
And just like you were mentioning with like the fifth Sunday lesson of like the church being like, hey, did you listen to this? Did you like here is it again and all that stuff. And I want to help people, you know, really listen to what they're saying, what the prophets are saying, and not just the general vibe of like, oh yeah, they said like to be strong and be a good person, it's like
Mhm.
there's a lot of gold in there. And I wish people would really see their words for what they are and not just face value.
Yeah. That you see, there's so many things I want to say in regards to that because, okay, for one, some people just don't have time, and that's where you and I have value because we're able to devote some time to doing a YouTube channel, and then we're able to, actually basically perform service for somebody and pull out some of the more important things that to review. And yeah, it should heavily be based on modern day prophets, scriptures, and then avoid preaching. I think it's okay to speculate, but it's not good to like push your opinions like they're doctrine. You need to back everything up with something authoritative.
Yeah.
So we provide a service, and I'm talking to anybody that wants to do a YouTube channel. I'm all about promoting new people or just other people. If you want to do a YouTube channel, do it, because this is one way. Because like you were just saying, if we just stay quiet, then people that are on YouTube that use YouTube as a main source of entertainment, they're going to be listening to some of those other influences. But if we step up and put out good content, then we give them some alternatives and let them know that they're not alone. And I can't cover everything, you can't cover everything, and there's so many different LDS YouTubers that cover such great topics. For example, you have the guy that Quick, I think his it's like CWIC. He does like a lot of like
Mm.
observing what's happening at BYU, so there's that. I have Joni, the genealogist, that she's doing that. There's this girl I'm going to interview probably next week, and she does a lot of stuff about like women in the priesthood and the Heavenly Mother controversy thing lately and stuff like that. So I always used to think, okay, it was never my intention to join the army. I had a plan where I was going to go to school, become an accountant. That was it. Okay, that was my goal. And I followed promptings, which led me this way. Um, and it came to the point where I always used to think before that point, because I had some curiosity about joining the military, but I was like, nah, there's other people that'll do that. Like, I don't need to do that. Other people will do it. And it turns out that's not true. If you don't do it, no one's going to do it, you know. And once I did join the army, it ended up being one of the best things that's ever happened to me. But the same applies to the gospel, and it could apply to anyone that feels the prompting to do a YouTube channel. You may think that there's other people that are doing it, but there's other things that you have to add, and no one is going to do it except for you. And so, whatever your talents are, whether it's YouTube, whether it's something else, whatever your talents are that you can consecrate to the Lord, do it. Because if you don't, nobody's going to do it. So, yeah. Sorry, did you have
Yeah.
something? Okay.
No, you're good. I kind of want to piggyback off that and just say to anyone who wants to do a channel or wants to do anything related to this, like it is so easy now to do all this. Like it's so you don't have to have like a fancy camera. You can have like your phone or some like little crappy webcam or something. You don't have to have a mic. You just need something that works that could pick it up. It is we need you. We need your voice. We need more people sharing good things, even if you don't feel like you're doing super profound things. If you feel any inclination to put anything positive out there, especially of course if it is gospel related, please do it because we need people like you, anyone. We need anyone. And
Yeah.
to me, I feel like I am the least articulate, least eloquent person ever.
That's
Like
how that's
I
how I feel about myself.
like there's a reason why I edit my videos to death because I have to chop myself up so much because of all my ums. And I've actually been really nervous about this interview because I know I stutter so much and
Yeah.
and I'm not doing this because I think I'm great. And I don't think anyone who's doing these videos like you or Troy or Palmer or any other LDS YouTubers, I think in one way or another, we all just kind of felt led to this. Not because of any particular desire to be praised or anything. Because like I know for me, speaking for myself, it's like I'm just some kid who knows how to do edits. Like I'm a video editor by trade. I've been able to make a living off of that, and I've been grateful for it. But like I'm just some dude. I don't. I'm not a scholar. I'm not anything like that. And but I think the value that we have is that we're doing it, like you said earlier. Like the value that we have is we are members of the church and we're talking. And
Mhm.
I think that can inspire other people. And we need to have more of that out there because I think people crave it. I know for me, I don't love Sunday school. I'm just gonna say it. I hate Sunday school. It's kind of painful. It's kind of painful, and it's not because people are bad or anything. It's just not my favorite format. But I
Mhm.
again, I think people crave gospel conversation, even casual gospel conversation. And there are a lot of people who may be in a part member home or are maybe just they don't feel like they can have that openness with someone close to them. And so we provide we people like us provide that online and we could talk about it, and I think we have the responsibility to be responsible and to not put out any false doctrine and to um carefully speculate.
Mhm.
And again, I think this is so needed. And like I really think more people need to do this, because if it's just up to like someone like me or a few others, it's just that kind of scares me a little bit.
It's been noted time and time again that since the 1800s, since Joseph Smith, so much technology has been developed and implemented. And within our lifetime, the big one, probably the one of the biggest milestones of human history is the internet. And I don't think that we fully comprehend all the implications yet of what the internet can do and become. And but anyway, we have it. And we have all these tools that are available, and you know the Lord is using all these things for his purposes, whether it's travel, airplanes, or whether it's electricity. It's like, and so we got to take these tools and make use of them, because if not, then what a waste. What a waste. Because I did my interview a couple weeks ago with Adam from Israel. I spoke to somebody from Israel because of the internet, something that could not have happened when I was younger. Like when I was in high school, YouTube wasn't around yet, and there was no such thing as like what we're doing right now. So we have this now, and you never know how far your content is going to go or who's going to come across it. And there may
It's
be
true.
things that only you can say or share in a certain way that will touch somebody on the other side of the planet, for all you know. So it's like one of the most incredible opportunities. Again, whether it's YouTube or whether it's Facebook or whatever the platform is, it is far reaching, and the possibilities are mind blowing, I think. Okay, so one thing that I wanted to ask you, you said something earlier. You're talking about people within the church. There's kind of like a divide between those that think that the second coming is still far away, and those that feel that it's near. How, in your mind, think, all the times you've thought about it, what is your theory for that? What causes that? Do you think?
The division,
Yeah.
or yeah. So I think a big part of it is, well, I think there's a few things. One, I think people just think people have thought it's the last days for so long that it's, everyone's been saying, oh, like I'm going to be alive for the second coming, and those people are dead, and like all that stuff. And I think, I, which that logic doesn't make sense to me, because people are like, oh, they've been saying it's been coming for thousands of years. It's like, well, if it's been thousands of years, or even if you just consider the restoration, which was like 200 years ago, like oh, people have been saying that since. Don't you think that the further we stray away from, or like the further we get away from that, the closer we'd get? Like,
Yeah.
I know people say like, oh, we're always closer, but
Well, the one
like,
that doesn't get me is when someone says, "Oh, I've been hearing that this is the generation ever since I was little," and it's like,
you're still the generation.
do you realize you're still alive?
Yeah, like that, the logic doesn't make sense to me, and I think there's people who just don't want it to happen because they're afraid, and they don't understand like what the second coming is exactly. I think people are so afraid of that when it's like, I don't know. You've probably seen this a lot more than me, but like sometimes I'll see comments from people on YouTube videos where I'll say like, "Oh yeah, I think we're getting closer," and then someone will be like, "No, we're not that close. Everything's gonna be okay." And I'm thinking like, everything's gonna be okay because it's close. Like,
What do you think's going on in their mind? What do you think
yeah,
they think?
I
Do you,
think
do you think
people are
they're
just.
worried about their spiritual preparation, or just, yeah, what do you think?
I think it's just the idea of the apocalypse. Like, I think when we talk about the second coming, people automatically put us in like a prepper category, and they view that in a very negative light, you know. They think like, "Oh, you're just some fringe crazy person
Mhm.
because you think that the end is near and all that stuff." It's like,
Yeah.
no. it's it, I don't know. It's kind of weird, and people don't like to talk about it because there is a lot of weird speculation, and you have people with weird theories in and out of the church. And so I think people just don't like to talk about it. They don't like to think that it's near because I don't think they want to believe that it's near.
Yeah. I was watching an episode of Alias. I think it was season 2. I can't remember, but there was like an episode where there Alias has to do with like this prophecy. It's like a really fun show, but like in this like prophecy thing, there was like a day that they thought that the world was going to end, and one of the characters is like talking to another one and like, "Oh, what do you think about this, the world ending tonight at midnight?" And the person was like, "Yeah, I don't like to think about it, because I mean I still have so much to do." And I think that that actually might be some of it too. Like some
Yeah.
people, maybe things are going really well for them in their life, and so they think that, well, or maybe they're not sure how would carry forward into the second coming, if like their way of life would be completely destroyed. And so, yeah, if things are going really well for you and you think that the second coming will affect it, then maybe you prefer to be like, no, we still got a long time, and kind of like almost like a self-coddling type uh,
Hmm.
defense mechanism of sorts. I don't know.
Yeah.
But but at the same time, it's like, if you're if you're searching for truth and you're being real and you're seeing what's happening, I feel like there's so many signs across so many domains that it's kind of hard to ignore at this point, whether
Yeah.
you remember the church or not, because I feel like it's being felt throughout the world. um Yesterday I was talking to this rabbi that I got set up with through Israel 365, and he was talking about how it's the end days. And when he's talking about end days, he's talking about the messianic era, when or the messianic age, when Mashiach comes. But him, and I think a lot of observant Jews are feeling like it's that time. Like everybody's feeling it. I feel like
Yeah.
everybody's feeling it. uh do you find it hard to like talk about this with family members or friends, or like?
Yeah. It's interesting because I have like I have one friend who I could talk about it with a little bit. Um, but most of the people that I talk to about it, and they're all like faithful members of the church that I talk to sometimes, but it kind of gets pushed off. It gets brushed off, and as if like, oh, well, they'll say like, oh, well, this thing hasn't happened yet, so it's gonna be a while, so don't worry about it. Like I've heard that like a million times,
Yeah.
and then just people who don't want to think about it, and or people make the assumption, like that other commenter that I talked about, that they just think I'm afraid. It's like, I'm not doing this because I'm anxious. I'm excited for it to happen. I anxiously await it. I'm not
Mhm.
trying to avoid it. And even though I'm not perfect, and I need to work on things in my life, I'm working on them. And I know that it's going to be fine. It's going to be just fine. And like I I don't know. it's weird how it's such a um, avoided topic.
Yeah, I think there's many different reasons. One thing I've thought about these, second coming channels, and basically what we're doing, it's almost like it's Christmas Eve night, and like we're all brothers and sisters, we're in the same room, and like we can't go to sleep because we're excited to see, what we have the next morning, and we're just excited for Christmas. And I feel like that's what a lot of us are essentially doing. We're just like so excited, and we're
Is the
imagining,
bridegroom coming?
yeah, we're imagining, what's it going to be like, and is this a sign? Maybe uh, footsteps on the rooftop.
Hmm.
So it's very exciting. I like doing it. The one thing that you mentioned that just drives me nuts is when people say that there's still so much to do because before the second coming can happen, because that statement comes with the assumption that the person making the statement knows how prophecy is going to play out, that they have a clear idea, and so they can say no because this will at least take so many years. So like one of the big ones, for example, is building New Jerusalem.
Hmm.
In your mind, Tyler, when you think about that, do you picture the Kansas City area being destroyed, or how do you picture that happening? And then I'll share my thoughts.
Yeah, so I guess this is probably already obvious, but like of course I could be way wrong about this, and I like to keep my mind open about it. I know you feel the same. But kind of how I picture it would be I don't I don't think it has to literally be built right away. Like
Right.
I think what happens what will probably happen or could happen is I could see there being war or conflict in the United States. And that's a whole thing within itself. I won't go into that, but like, I could see a point to where we might have to move church headquarters, but I
Mhm.
don't think we have to have this specific build before Jesus Christ comes. Like, I think something could be started, but I also think, hey, we could still be in Utah and then Christ comes and then we move there
Mhm.
after the millennium starts or something. I think the timing or I guess the sequence of events is the thing that people get caught up in.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of and thens in scripture, but but that doesn't always mean that it's going to be that exact order. It could still be simultaneous,
Mhm.
or it could happen like either minutes or days or years or decades between each other. We don't have any frame of reference other
Yeah.
than symbolic numbers.
Yeah. And there's people that just like live and die by those, then this and then this and then this, and it's like I would just be cautious about that. Not that it's going to like drive you from the church. You can have your opinions, but I don't know, just don't get disappointed if it plays out a different way. Because what if building up Jerusalem, kind of like what you're saying, like what if it's just kind of like little by little, and what if you can count the prophecy as being fulfilled when the church land right there fully gets developed? Maybe they build part of the temple complex, or what if like the community of Christ goes bankrupt, they maybe they cease to be a church, or the Church of Christ temple lot, because their numbers aren't very big, and they have the church of or the community of Christ. I know that they're concerned about tithing because the younger
Mm-hmm.
generation it's starting to kind of dwindle, and not as much tithing is coming in, and so they've been selling relics and things to our church. I did a video where we were looking at the possibility, could the time come when they sell the Kirtland Temple to the church? And so, anyway, who knows how long they have, but what if they just kind of like they cease to be, and then the church buys that land, develops it, and maybe that's the start of New
Yeah.
Jerusalem. Or it could just be with the land that the church currently has, which is actually, it's quite a bit of land um, that they already have in that spot where the Independence Visitor Center is. So
Yeah.
I never like to like really be too rigid in my interpretations of scripture, because it could happen in a different way than what we imagine or what we even know is possible.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, did you have any other thoughts or anything else you wanted to touch on before we go?
Yeah. I think so. I'm trying to figure out how to word this exactly, but it's been really strange for me to just just the last few months seeing how the world is being affected by everything and just culture, um and everything with like war and rumors of wars that's been really big like
Yeah.
now, and just political divide, social division. We have so much of that, and it's so easy to get caught up in it. And I feel like for me, I've been so caught up in, oh my gosh, what is gonna happen? Like I keep like for me, I keep thinking like, what if I go to the store and there's some crazy person who does a certain thing? I don't want to say exactly what that is on YouTube right now, but you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Um, like I, there is a lot of fear, and I'm not the most fearful person right now, but there are a lot of considerations being in a fallen world. There's a lot of harsh there's it's a harsh reality that we live in a fallen world, and we have to compensate for that in a lot of ways. And I I think something I've noticed is there are still a lot of people who just want to avoid it. Like they want to act like it's not happening.
Mhm.
Like they want to act like the world's not crumbling, and that's their way of coping with it. But like we just now have a lot of passive people who don't want to do anything about it. But then you also have a lot of extremists who are just trying to do something about it, and then they make reckless decisions.
Yeah.
And so I guess the thing the thing that's been on my mind is like, how can we be temporally and spiritually prepared for things without being fearful? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I think the answer to that, like most things, is moderation, because yeah, we can't be naive and just like act like nothing's happening. But at the same time, we shouldn't let the alarm bells go off necessarily and then spread that to others.
Yeah.
Um, so I think we just need to have our head on a swivel, take appropriate measures to make sure that you're prepared. So like in my case, I feel a lot better now that I have a homestead where I can produce some food if needs be, but I also don't like feel the need to go all out.
Hmm.
Um, and I certainly don't like to panic other people. So I think that the best thing right now, the most important thing, is taking care of yourself spiritually, going to the temple, feeling the peace that comes from the temple and being at church and doing all these spiritual things. So, because you'll have peace, you'll have assurance. Find, look for personal revelation, because during these times, maybe personal revelation will play a really key role in your life and keep you safe. So you can find peace in that, I think. Just pray, ask for like, how can I stay safe and what's best for my family? Where should I go? What should I do? And just try and keep a level head, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's scary. Uh, we haven't really seen times like this. Again, it blows my mind that Russia is at war with Ukraine. It's
Yeah.
like bizarro world right now. In fact, I was going to ask you about that, just not in depth necessarily, but do you think that that's kind of like a special sign of the times? Does it stand out to you, or like what are your thoughts on that, on the war?
Specifically Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't think I mean, I think it's a big deal, and I mean, everyone is talking about the possibility of World War III. So
uh,
that is, you know, that's a huge thing. I don't know about those those lands specifically, if that plays a specific role within this, other than maybe the refugees
yeah.
being able to find the gospel in that way, you
Yeah.
know, because we have different Ukrainian refugees at different places now, and maybe that'll be how they're exposed to the gospel, or maybe they're Ukrainian members who are able to share their testimony with other people. That's a positive way that I can think about that. Other than just the general wars and rumors of wars fulfillment, I don't know about anything else specifically with them.
Yeah. I just have my eye on it for I have a few reasons. One, because it's the largest land war since World War II in Europe, so that kind of stands out.
Yeah, that's
Um,
pretty big.
the fact, yeah, yeah, and the fact that I did a video where Ukraine and Russia are on they're on the top 10 list of wheat producing countries, which I think is kind of weird. There's also a lot of there historically have been a lot of Jews in Russia and Ukraine, and I tend to think is there's something kind of going on with that. And also, I feel just based on anecdotal evidence that there's more diversity in the tribes, according to patriarchal blessing in that part of the world. So
Mm.
I don't really know, but I feel like it kind of stands out a little bit. I think it's important, and maybe we won't. I don't know. It just kind of it's weird. But I can't believe it's happening. Either way, I can't believe it's happening. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we should probably wrap it up there before it gets too long. But thank you, Tyler, for talking with me. We'll have to do this again sometime in the future. Everybody, I'm going to put the link for his channel in the description below. He's also featured on the homepage of my channel, so you can find it there too. Tyler Cragen, The Greatest Cause. Subscribe, please. And we'll talk to you guys next time.